What up, is Marcus. I am outside here today. We're going to be doing some Dynasty Startup advice. Then we're going to be going through some quarterback rankings, running back rankings, wide receiver rankings, tight end rankings, all sorts of different rankings in the next couple of days here. So the biggest advice that I would start off with is make sure that you start off with some tiers. And what I mean by that is figure out what your rankings would be. Start finding different tiers. This is important in Dynasty Startup. This is important in Dynasty, in just redraft in general. It's how teams get basically better players onto their roster. You figure out what your tiers are and try to get into those end of those tiers. Don't be afraid to trade into the end of a tier and pay up a little bit for that if you need to. I did that in multiple different startups last year. One was trying to get Chris Godwin. He was the end of a tier over players like Kenny Golladay and over players like Allen Robinson and stuff. And I'm okay with that. I'm okay with overpaying into these tiers at the end of it. It is very, very important to figure out, okay, where is the drop-offs in some of these Dynasty startups? I'm going to take my headphones off here. It's one of the biggest advices that I have when it comes to really anything with it, rookie drafts, Dynasty startups, redrafts. Tiers are so important, which leads me to part number 2, which is value-based drafting. What is value-based drafting? Value-based drafting it helps when you mock draft, but I would rather have these 2 players over these 2 players, or I would rather have this running back over these running backs because of the value-based difference. So an example of this, to make it kind of simple. Superflex, you're going to see a lot of quarterbacks go right away. And you're going to want potentially the allure of Jonathan Taylor or the allure of, I believe allure is the correct word, of Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase, these wide receivers. But the difference between Jamar Chase and the next wide receiver in the next round might be a small difference between the difference you're going to get from Dak Prescott and the next round of Trevor Lawrence. There is a huge gap there versus a smaller gap. This is why Travis Kelce in redraft has been the, steal of drafts, you could say. The difference between Travis Kelce and everybody else the last 5 years has been big. So the value-based draft, Kelce's one of the best values. And what you're trying to do in some of these dynasty startups is trying to find value. So number 1, tiers. Number 2, value-based drafting. We're going to walk this way. Number 3, mock. It is so important to figure out where some of these players are lying. I suggest sleeper, but I would even do some fantasy pros, just a little bit of everywhere, because you never know where some of these players are going to go. I've done this enough where you expect the unexpected. I have thought, this player's going to go here. Or I always get Zach Wilson in this round. Or I always get Justin Fields in this round. Well, guess what? There might be another owner who's just thinking the exact same thing and has that pick 3 picks ahead of you, and all of a sudden has taken that pick, and now you're in a scramble and panic mode. Mock, and more mock. It is so important to figure out where some of these players are landing, where some of these players are going. It's one of the biggest suggestions that I have. The more you get kind of these rankings in your head right off the bat, the more you can start even just subconsciously thinking, okay, well, if I go here on this round, if I go wide receiver this round, I know I can get some running backs that I like in the next round or 2, instead of having to panic. When your time is on the clock, especially with these quick drafts, if it's only a couple of minutes that you get, 2-5 minutes, it's like there's not much time for you to be like, okay, well, if I do this, and then you already have to have these situations in your head, planned out, figured out. The next advice, figure out what your goal is. Are you a youth? It should be one of two things. Are you a contending team in 2022, aka this upcoming year, or are you a team that is going to be slow build? Are you going to be a team that drafts super young, a Trevor Lawrence, some rookies this year? Are you going to be drafting Kenneth Walker, Drake London? Are you going to be the team that is looking 2-3 years out? So figure out what your team is. If your team is the youth team, you're probably not taking very many veterans. Or you're taking players that you are hoping to flip and get different prospects, different players in the next couple of months. My team was all about youth and all about okay to not contend in 2022 for a lot of different leagues. I took J.K. Dobbins, torn ACL. I took Deshaun Watson, suspended in unknown issues. Travis Etienne, I took him in some leagues because I knew the following year, like, he was a huge value, and I was okay suffering an entire year of not having that player, and now I have those players. And now those players have shot up in values. Be okay drafting injured players or suspended players that may have issues because it's Dynasty. Dynasty is a multi-year thing, of course, but everyone always thinks year one. They either think year one or punt year one. You can draft young players. Last year, I had the decision between DeAndre Swift and Ezekiel Elliott, and I chose DeAndre Swift because I was the young team, again, looking for 2022, not 2021 as my year. So again, thinking what is the mode of your team. So I wasn't taking many older players. I was just kind of patching my team together. So I think that is a huge advice that I would have when it comes to Dynasty Fantasy Football. I'm trying to think if there's really anything else. Knowing your league mates helps, but I would feel like that is so hard to do. League mates can change, and because one person does something can change what another person does. So I would say that is lower on the priority list. If you don't have rookies involved in your Dynasty startup, that is important to note or not. That changes things. And how is that draft different? Like, these are questions to be known as well. So I would suggest putting rookies, especially if you're starting 2022, not 2021, that was last year. If you're starting the league now and startup, I would assume just put your rookies in the startup draft. Like, I feel like there's no easy way to do it if you don't. If you make it 1 through 12 snake draft, Dynasty startup without rookies, but then you do inverse order, I feel like that's just going to be a mess. I really don't like doing that. I've seen some other teams, other leagues. One league that I wasn't a part of, but I was discussing helping somebody in, is they had after 12 rookies were taken in the rookie draft in the Dynasty startup, then the rookies were no longer allowed to be picked, and basically they started at rookie 13. Inverse order of the startup. Inverse order, of the startup. Which, I don't like. You're just making things complicated that don't have to be complicated. We're going to be doing some Dynasty startups here in the next couple of days. It's beautiful out. I didn't want to go inside and make a video, so... man, it is like 75 here. I feel like the last time I made a video, it was like 30 degrees. Ultimately, I'm gonna try. Does anybody know a specific nice program to do? Because I would like to have the background or the forefront be, I wonder how they do the screen recording things, because I can do screen recordings and I can do that but I can't get audio onto it, so it's being complicated. So if anybody knows how to fix that issue that I'm having, because it'd be nice to have you see the process that I'm thinking through, but to do that I have to go through my computer and have to go through and download, and it makes things a mess. Is there an easier way of doing it where I can screen record but have audio with it? Because I can screen record with no audio, and I can do audio with no screen recording. It makes things really difficult. So again, I'm glad that you made it this long, 9 minutes. Peace out. Take care. We'll see you tomorrow.